architecture of the project. So basically we do have a node module. In this we will have all the packages which is required to run the project and which is required to build the application. So all the packages, all the libraries, you will find it inside node modules. Okay, so it is a quick overview of this project. So you can see a public folder. So in this public folder, you will find the index.html file and all the other, static files. You will find it over here in public folder. So basically we keep assets folder inside public folder, wherein we'll be keeping all the images, audios, videos, everything inside public folder only. Now coming back to this source folder is the folder where we are going to write the code. So we'll create all the components, whatever stores, actions, and reducers, okay, all configurations, whichever we are going to write, we'll be keeping inside a source folder only. Okay. Now, how the flow happens of this application is, okay, basically it will start with the index.html file. Okay. So in this index.html file, we have written div id equal to root. Okay. As soon as we run the application, okay, we compile with npm start. What will happen is, as soon as you say localhost 3000 in the browser, it is going to render your index.html file. Okay. So in that index.html file, now if you can see, there is no HTML over here, right? Nothing is there inside this. But how is it going to display all of our HTML elements, right? So what happens is, as we have this div id equal to root, okay? So we are telling, we are displaying app component inside this div, okay? So app component should be the starting component every time. So not only in this React, we follow this in Vue.js as well as in Angular. So app component should be your starting component. So from app component, if you want to display some other component, that is fine, but app should be starting component. How it is going to be starting component, let me show you. So basically you just remember this div id equal to root. Okay. If we go to this index.js file, so yes, of course, when index.html is rendered on the screen, on the browser screen, index.js will also be going to be loaded, right? So from here, your JavaScript will get started. So now here, what you're telling, your React DOM, okay, so we do have React DOM, right? So React DOM is telling to render, we do have this render method, which is a special method of a React. Okay, like how constructor is a special method of a class. Okay, like that only a render method is also a special function. Okay, so this render method we are making use, okay, to render app component. So yes, we are going to render app component, but where, right? So that we are telling here, it is been written that, okay, whichever element is having the id root, okay, display app component inside that. So if you go here in index.html file, you will find app inside this div id root. So that is the reason. Now it's not that you cannot change this app to any other component. You can change it, but it is not recommended. Always app should be your first component, a starting component, right? It is going to create a tree structure, tree-like structure, component tree structure. Okay. So this is how the application flow happens. So this is how the execution happens. Now if we go to app.js component, okay, let me start running the application. So I've got this terminal. Just say npm start binding. So basically you will not find it over here. So it should be in your head section, either in the body section, right? So do you find this index.js? You will not find it over here, but internally it happens. Okay. So if you see in Angular, it has been done. Okay. But here internally it happens. So it knows which file to load as soon as you run localhost 3000. So basically settings, you will find it here. I'm showing it here, right? Okay. So the service worker.js file. So you'll find it over here. So it happens automatically. Basically works on localhost 3000, port 3000. Let's say I am running one of the application in port 3000 and the other application, if I'm again running So it will ask you a question. Okay, the 3000 port is busy. Do you want to use the other port? So if you say yes, it will immediately change it to 3001, 3002, like that. Okay. So in Angular, we had the command hyphen hyphen port, but we do not have it here, but it will ask you directly, like whether you want to change your port. This is how you can change the host name. Okay. But you'll find the local host and the host name, the port. Okay. Everything you will find it here only. Okay, so basically, you cannot write it manually over here. Okay, now one of the application is already in use in 3000, right? So if I'm opening up another application of React, okay, let me open one of the application again. Manually, you cannot change it. Okay, so if you run it here, let's say npm start. Would you like to run the app on another port instead? Okay, so it found out that something is already running on port 3000. So if I say yes, it will start running on some other port. Okay, so it takes up localhost 3001. See, 3000 is here, 3001 is here. Okay, so in this way you can change the ports. And then so now, so here, as the application starts with localhost 3000, so everything is pre-written, okay? And if you want to know all your dependencies information, you will find it inside package.json file, okay? And what are the command scripts you need to run, you'll find it over here, right? Browser list, development, all these things, you'll find it here, okay? So now let's go to this app.js file. So in this app.js file, I have written app component, right? So if you go, you'll find this app component, right? So I'll quickly inspect and show you. You see this? Okay, inside div id root, right? So this is my index.html file. Okay, so it has created div class app component. Okay, so you can see it has created a small chunks also. Okay, so bundle.js is there, chunk.js is there, main chunk is there, right? So now inside this div we do have this app component. So inside app component, whatever I'll be rating, that will be there inside div id, right? If I refresh, okay, there is nothing over here. Let me check all. See there. So this is small chunks it will create. Okay, so the components will be like a chunk, small chunk. Okay, so you do have bundle.js and you have React Dev Tools main chunk. Okay, all this pictures also you have it. So you'll find it over here. So when we talk about lazy loading, right? So we'll understand this chunk. Like when we get into that particular component, then only that chunk will be loaded. Otherwise, all the chunks will be loaded at once. So now here you can see this is my functional component. So as I said, each component together will make a application, right? So a collection of each component. So now here you can see if you want to create a component, then you need to create a JS files. Okay, so in some companies they follow a different extension. Sometimes they write JSX, sometimes they write TS also, TSX. Okay, so like this they follow. So basically .js files most of the companies follows. So now here, as we have React library, we have imported React library, and we are creating a functional component. So basically there are two types of components. Okay, one is a functional component and the other one is a class component. So I'll tell you the difference between functional component and class component. First let us understand the the code of a functional component. So you can see I have imported React from React. So basically it should be a default export because we do not have curly braces surrounding. And you need to import CSS in this. So now here we do have function app, okay, which is returning what? Div. Okay. So see here, this is not HTML. Okay, this is a JSX. And what is a JSX? JavaScript XML. Okay, so we are making use of JSX. So here, why do we say it is a JSX? Because it has all the combination JavaScript, XML, and HTML. So XML plus HTML, okay, together it is making a JSX. Fine. So that is why we are saying JSX. So JSX has a lot of restrictions. You will come to know when you do a coding in HTML here in JSX. So basically, see, we do use class. Now you can see we do have class name, okay, and the way we write style tag is different. We write it here. Okay, so this kind of a restrictions we have it. I'll show you when we'll be coding. Okay, so right now here what I will do is I will try creating a simple form. Okay, let's say I'll have a label or attribute. I'll write. Okay, so username, placeholder, and let's say enter username. Have another label. Let me just copy and paste. Let's have a password. So you guys might be knowing, right? Why do we use for attribute, name attribute, placeholder? Let's have a button. So I'm not creating a div over here to put to wrap my label and put inside a div. So I'll do it later, but I'm just showing you like how you can write the HTML inside this. Let's have a submit. Yeah, now we are done. So see, I'm getting a username, password, and submit button. So next, what I will do is I'll write the classes. Okay. So what shall we do? Let's say class equal to login. App.css. That is why I created a class. Otherwise, I could have used a style. Okay. Let me have a div then. Okay, so I'll simply do one thing. I'll just keep it inside div because it's a block level element. Okay, so I do not need to think much about CSS over here. You can see my username and password is looking like this. I wanted to show you, I have used class, right? So see, class, I have used it over here. Now in the console, you will find this invalid DOM property for, okay, did you mean HTML for? And the other warning which I got is, see, warnings will not harm you, but you should solve them. Okay. So see, invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? Okay. So these are all things we need to change because it is a JSX restrictions. Okay, so if somebody is asking you what is the advantage of React, okay, so you do have a lot of advantages, right? One of the advantages JSX also. Then again, they'll ask you what is the disadvantage of JSX. So you need to tell in that time that JSX has a lot of restrictions, okay? Because see, why they are using class name, okay, and why they are using this for HTML instead of for, they're using HTML for, right? Why? Because see, in class components you have a class keyword. In class component you'll be creating a class, let's say employee. So this keyword, okay, it is, the compiler will think this as a class keyword. Like, so if you are going to use that here like this, what will happen? Confusion will get created. Okay, because HTML, CSS, JavaScript, everything is mixed, right? Now here we use for loop, and we have this HTML, I mean for attribute. So here also confusion will get created. That is the reason instead of for, we are using HTML for. It will create ambiguity. Okay, the confusion will get created between this class and this class, and this for and label for attribute, right? So that is the reason it is showing us warning Okay, so instead of using for, use HTML for, it is showing. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and change them. If you have installed that, E7 and React.js, automatically it will give you a suggestion, auto suggestion. Now here, what I will do is, let me do one thing. Let me write one more div over here, and in this div, we'll keep our form, and in another div, the above div, we'll just say h3 login form. Now it is giving error, if you can see red line. Okay, so I will hover on this and you can see JSX expression must have one parent element, right? So this is also one of the restriction of a JSX, that only you should have only one parent element. Okay, there should not be sibling elements. So if I format this, you can see I have two divs. See there, I have two divs. So this should not be the case. We should have only one div inside this. Okay. So now what I need to do is, okay, I'll keep this div inside this div. Okay, so this is one of the restrictions we can say. So now let's quickly go ahead and create a functional component. So now we are only talking about functional components. So function app is there, and then we do have this return method. Okay, now let's quickly create a form component. As we have created a form, okay, let's make it reusable. Okay, I will do one thing. I'll keep the component name as the topic name, so that it will be a reference for you guys. Okay, so here I will not be keeping it as a form component. So see here, I'm taking a folder. Inside that, I will just write components. Okay, and then inside that, I will write as a functional component. Okay, so whenever you want to just go ahead and see functional component, you can just directly go into this file, functional component.js. So I'll write import, then we'll have a function and function name. So here we can write form if you want, then have a return div. Now we are done. Okay, in this let me have all the form. I'll keep it over here. Done. So now I have to do a default export. Okay, so what is that? Export default and the component name, like this. See there? Okay, and then we'll use this form inside this. Fine. So I need to import it. Okay, so let me write import form from dot slash component. See, here I'm giving a path component slash functional component. You don't need to mention the extension. Okay, so now, yeah, you can now write it. I have made my first reusable component, that is form component. See, this is how it is looking. Okay, and yeah, so I have created my functional component here. Okay, now can we create a functional component? This is my regular function, right? So can I create a arrow function? Yes, you can. So now it should still work, right, with the arrow function. So you guys know what is the difference between a regular function and the arrow function, right? So based on that, you can think of using regular function or an arrow function. So basically we also go ahead with the arrow functions. Fine, so now we have made this a form component. So I have shown you two types, like a regular function and the arrow function you can use. Now let me use class component. Okay, I'll tell you the difference, guys. What is the difference between class component and a functional component? Okay, so basically what happens, we use functional component only in our projects. Okay, so your project manager will check your code whether it is functional or class component. So before that, when we didn't had these hooks of functional component, we didn't had much functionalities in functional component. We were used to use classes component. So all the developers were in comfortable zone of using this class component. But then when we came up with the new hooks in functional component, okay, we were not ready to change. Okay, we was still using class component, but no, we started using slowly, and now we are using functional component. But still, many of the developers don't know the functional component hooks. Okay, we have got new hooks in this newest version.